My question is, why did you leave Ethereum, and what do you see the direction that it's heading, and what are you hoping to correct with Cardano in that?
So, in the early days, we had 8 founders. Okay, and so we had one group of founders here, and I have lots of props back here, so I'm just gonna grab them because I answer this question so many damn times. So. All right, so we had 2 groups of founders. One of them technical, and one of them not so technical. So on the technical side, you know Vitalik, right? Yeah, everybody kind of knows him. And there's also Gavin Wood and Jeff Wiltshire, brilliant people. Then on the non-technical side, also brilliant people. You had people like Joe Lubin, you had Anthony Diorio, Mihai Alicia, and Amir Shatrit. And then there's poor Charles Hoskinson, who stood right here in the middle. So I was kind of somewhat technical, but remember, I have no technical skills. And then I was kind of somewhat business guy, and my job was to keep them together. But this felt like an unstable element. It was shaking a lot and very difficult. And we had to make a hard decision about the business future for Ethereum. So we could either be a not-for-profit, set up a foundation, do an ICO, and be a really technical project like Apache or Linux. Or we could set up a for-profit entity, set up a board of directors, get VC funding, and be more like Red Hat or be more like Ripple and basically run the company this way. So there were strong arguments on both sides, for-profit or not-for-profit. At the time, we called it Crypto Google versus Crypto Mozilla was kind of our big debate. So, or you could conceptually think of it as forming consensus prior to forming Ethereum. So originally we decided, well, Crypto Google makes sense. And when we started going down that road, Vitalik didn't like it so much, and some other people in the project didn't like it so much. And eventually they decided to have the pendulum swing to the other side. Now, my argument against the not-for-profit was, at first I would assume that everybody would just leave, because there was no incentive to stay. There were no golden handcuffs. So once people got paid, they would just branch off, start their own companies. Maybe those companies would be Ethereum related, maybe they wouldn't be, but we'd basically lose all of our talent. Whereas if we had the for-profit, we could vest people, have equity and these types of things, and they'd have to stick around for a while. The other thing was, this was real risky. If we did an ICO and what if the product didn't work? There would be lawsuits and regulatory problems and so forth, whereas here we'd be spending smart money, VC money. So this felt like a higher probability of success, higher probability of keeping things together, plus the project had become quite bloated. There was about 100 people by June of 2014. The relationships, who's doing what, where, who's a volunteer, who's actually going to get Ether, that wasn't completely clear, especially when you went 2, 3 separations outside of the founding set. So Vitalik had to make a decision, and Vitalik made this decision. I left, Amir Shatrit left at the same time as well. Shortly thereafter, Anthony left and Joe left. Joe formed Consensus, Anthony formed Decentral, Amir does lots of consulting, Mihai formed Akasha. Then the tech side started leaving, Gavin left and created Parity, and Jeff, I think, is having fun somewhere. And Vitalik is still around. So was I right? I don't know. I mean, Ethereum is an overwhelmingly successful project, and there's a lot of people who love it and believe in it, and it has a great ecosystem, lots of great developers. They've been able to overcome a lot of challenges and adversity. Could it have been bigger had it been this direction? Or would it have failed had it been that direction? It's one of those what-ifs that we'll never really get to know. So for Cardano, I don't think too much about Ethereum. It's second-generation technology. It's like Lamborghini thinking about Ford. It doesn't usually come up much in the conversations. I'm sure that the Explorer is a big competitor to the Urus, but I think it's just a better product. Cardano is all about actually making the concepts of Bitcoin better. There were a lot of really good ideas in Bitcoin, like this idea of UTXO accounting and this idea of having really simplistic transactions. That's desirable. It's low liability, it makes sense, and it's very powerful. And there's obvious things you can do to make that model more powerful without going all the way into the other direction of what we did with Ethereum. And if you have the magic of side chains and being able to run parallel chains, parallel concepts at the same time, you can encapsulate risk and say, okay, we can do computation here, accounting here. So basically, we think this is the best model to try to pursue something that could actually work for millions to billions of people, and also allow us to really creatively experiment with governance in a sane way. you can't really do that in a $100 billion blockchain that's already deployed. You kind of have to be super conservative. So it warrants a next generation and a lot of experimenting. The other thing is I'm sickened by the engineering standards in this space. I mean, it's like you're losing hundreds of millions of dollars with things like the DAO and the parity hacks. It just should not happen when people's money at this level and with this level of funding is at risk. So I really wanted to do things differently, which is why we worked with people in the Haskell space and why we're very gung-ho to do things like formal verification over time. I'm also sickened by the science side of the space. When someone makes a security claim or a privacy claim or makes a performance claim, that's a claim that requires evidence. It requires verification. So if it's a scientific claim, you need to go through peer review. There's a process for it. It's old. It works. That's why we have plane, trains, and automobiles. So we follow that. So that's what I really wanted to do with Cardano, is pursue a different architecture, kind of a different collection of risks, which were much more ambitious, and also pursue different engineering standards and pursue different science standards. And I think for the most part, we've managed to accomplish that, and we've made a huge amount of progress. A long road to go down and a lot more to do, but to me it feels like an inevitability rather than a what if at this point. And I'm going to spend the next few years of my life on it.